Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I have a great question that is probably one that you never thought of before. And we are going to unpack this today with a guy that is just going to crush this topic. So let me ask you your question here first. And the question really is, are your biggest barriers to success? Okay. Are they external, like competition or government or the client or your industry or your team or the weather? There's all these things that a lot of times we like to blame as barriers to success. Are they external or are they internal? And I was like, oh, it's so much more fun to blame somebody else. But I'm like, who in the world asks this question? So I found the guy, and I'm honored to be hanging out with Trevor McGregor. How are you today, my friend?
Well, thank you, Dave. I am blessed and grateful and excited to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And you are a high performance business coach. So fill us in on what that looks like in your world.
Well, thanks very much. And again, I'm absolutely stoked to be here with you. And the listener is, man, it is a fast paced world out there and it's getting even busier and faster, day by day. I mean, we've got so much coming at us as business owners or as entrepreneurs or, trying to optimize for success and wealth and freedom and all these things. But, again, it's hard to do it alone. So, as a high performance business coach, I help business owners, entrepreneurs, franchise owners, real estate investors really navigate all that comes at them in terms of two things. Number one, mindset, right? And number two,
Yep.
mechanics. And I
Okay.
find, and after, being a coach for as long as I have, that it's not so much the mechanics or what you do, it's really how you think and how you approach it and mindset. And that's why I really, really love talking about mindset mastery when it comes to business.
Wow. Well, and I can tell you have a little bit of an accent. So I'm going to ask the painful question. Were you following the Olympics when the U.S. happened to sneak one past Canada, or did you miss that game?
Well, Dave, of course, as a proud Canadian, and you'll hear that in my accent probably,
Yep.
I'm a big hockey fan. So kudos to the US as they played really well and really hard and, put it past our Canadian goalie. But sports is, again, just like business. Sometimes you win and sometimes you're on the other end of winning, but there is no failure. There's only feedback, right? And I
Yep.
think the US
Absolutely.
got some tremendous feedback about their powerful team, and Canada got some feedback about what they might need to do next time to get you guys. But I will throw in that we did win the Olympic gold in curling. Now I know it's not as exciting as hockey, but at least I can give my Canadian friends a shout out there.
Trevor, I don't think we know what curling is here in the US, so I will just kind of leave it at that. So we focus on that little used to be I think it used to be a horse turd, right? Back in the day, that's what they
Yes,
used for a hockey puck. So
they did.
so awesome. Well, I love mindset and mechanics, and again, I want to kind of play off of that question because I think barriers of success, as I alluded to when we started, it's really easy to kind of blame others, and that feels like we're in that blame others type of society where I don't want to take the responsibility. So before we jump into your journey, I guess I want to ask you a question. Do you notice a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, do you notice that they tend to blame, or do they, by the time they get to you, are they pretty much like, yeah, this is on me and I really need to get better? I'm just curious what you kind of run into.
Well, sure. So again, after, my own journey through corporate, through real estate, through coaching, and after doing, which is I'm well known for doing over 45,000 coaching sessions, and that's an actual statistic. I've poured my heart and soul into this, as a career. I'd have to be an idiot at this stage, Dave, not to see what people come with and the
Sure.
tons of baggage that they carry where they blame, they shame, they
Yeah.
justify, they deflect, they defend, they deny, and they're not willing to take personal responsibility for where they're at. And that's where, after working with and for Tony Robbins for over half a decade as well, which was an amazing opportunity for me, I really learned that sometimes people need to hear a quote in order to get them set up for success. And Tony Robbins' coach, Mr. Jim Rohn, had one of the greatest quotes of all time. I'm sure you've heard it, but I'll give it to you and the listener, and that's this: that it's not the winds that blow on us that determine where we end up. it's the set of the sail. And I just
Sure.
love that when it comes to
Yeah.
mindset and strategy, where it's not the winds that blow on us as business owners that will determine where we end up. It's the set of the sail. And who's responsible for setting the sail? Well, you're responsible for yours. I'm
Sure.
responsible for mine, but I do believe that we can help each other set a better sail. What do you think of that?
Sure. Yeah, no, I love that. I just feel like if I blame somebody else, Trevor, I lose any opportunity to change anything because I'm really then reliant on them to change or it to change rather than taking ownership of that. And when I wrote my book Growing on Purpose, it was because I run into so many people that grow by mistake, and I'm like, let's be more intentional with our growth. So I love that alignment there. So and as you alluded to, Trevor, there are a lot of people listening right now that really are interested in learning about your journey. There's a lot of people listening that want to start a business. They want to be where we are. They feel like they should be sitting on the beach for an hour a day, on a laptop, and then the rest of their day is yours. I'm not here to say that's the right or wrong way, but tell me from your perspective. So you were in corporate and you transitioned. Did you know like early on you were going to eventually own your own businesses? And what did that transition look like for you?
Well, exactly. Again, growing up, went to university and studied business in college, went to work just like many of the listeners in corporate. And I think it's good because you learn a little bit about, finance and marketing and sales and HR and all of those things. But
Sure.
really, at the end of the day, when you think about what you're doing, is you're working, making, and trading time for dollars, making other people rich. Well, they
Yeah.
pay you a salary. And I knew from a young age, because of my parents and my grandparents, that I would probably have a short stint in corporate and then I would want to step into my world as an entrepreneur. And that's exactly what I did because the number one thing that I think we're all optimizing for is freedom, right? And
Mm,
again,
yeah.
working for someone else or having a W 2 is okay. But if you really want to, suck the most juice out of life and live your best life, you do want to work towards the financial freedom, the time freedom, the location freedom, the impact freedom, and building relationship freedom where you can do many different things. And I think whether you open a business as a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, you find a partner, and maybe you get into e-commerce, there's many different ways to skin the cat, but you got to
Yeah.
think about what you're optimizing for in the first place. What do you really, really, really want? And for me, Dave, that was freedom.
Awesome. And I think, like you mentioned, there's a bunch of different freedoms that are there, which we'll unpack the freedom code later on in the show. So, from your journey, so when you were in corporate and you transitioned into owning your own business, did you kind of do a lot of people do a side hustle for a while. But there are a lot of people that have like this clean break. What did that look like for you, Trevor?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for me, it was the first thing that you said, where I wasn't ready to leave the almighty paycheck. I wasn't ready to leave the security. I wasn't ready to leave the health benefits. I wasn't ready to leave the company vehicle. And so
Yeah.
what, my coach did at the time is he said, "Well, what if you start your side hustle part-time?" Right? So while I keep my day job, I started
Sure.
to work in the evenings and the weekends on my own, business. And for me, that was real estate. I started
Okay.
investing in townhouses, duplexes, fourplexes, single family homes in Vancouver, Canada. And we were seeing tremendous appreciation at the time. And that's when I really started to build out, my real estate portfolio. But it
Yeah.
was really at that time, Dave, that people started coming to me saying, "Trevor, you're holding down this job, you're married, you've got two kids, and you're doing this real estate. Can you show me what you're doing?" And I'd
Mm.
say, "Well, sure, buy me lunch and I'll sit down with my blueprint and show you how to
Yeah.
do it." And that's when the coaching bug bit because I
Sure.
loved pouring my wisdom and knowledge into other people. And it was my
Sure.
son's soccer coach that literally took the blueprint and him and his wife used it. And within 6 weeks, they had bought their first rental property. Then
Mm.
in 6 months, they had two. And by a year, they had three rental properties. And it was around that time that as I left my corporate job to do real estate full time, I got invited to work with and for the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Robbins, as a
Sure.
high performance coach. And that's, where I'll throw that back to you before I get into that part of the journey. But that
Yeah,
was an amazing experience to go from corporate with the
sure.
side hustle in real estate to really full time in real estate and then get into the Robbins world.
Wow, that's fantastic. And we always put a caveat that there's no right or wrong way. Trevor's way was his way. It may or may not work for you. I'll never forget, I had someone on the show, Trevor, that got married, and 6 days later, they quit their job, had no clue what they were going to do, came home and told their wife, "Hey, congratulations, I quit my job. I'm going to be an entrepreneur." Didn't even know how to spell entrepreneur, but yet thought that that's what they wanted. And it worked, fortunately, but we just try to say, hey, everybody's got their own path to whatever that success looks like. So I love the side hustle piece. Did the side hustle get so massive that it kind of started to overshadow your corporate job?
It did. And again, I love that you're pointing out that that was my journey and that's how it worked for me. And,
Yeah,
it was really right time, right place, right mental fortitude because real estate wasn't easy. And if it was easy, everyone would quit their W-2 job and just get into it. So it was a
right.
lot of work. But I also remembered that the end game was not just the money, it was the ability to become my own boss, spend
Fair.
time with my children, coach little league baseball and soccer and all of those things. But for other friends and other clients that I've obviously worked with over the years, maybe they got laid off, or maybe they, had to deal with an aging parent where they could
Yeah,
no longer hold down their corporate job. Or for some people, they get to that point where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. So they cut the cord and leave corporate and have to reinvent themselves as entrepreneurs. So,
sure.
Dave, I've got to that place now where I've got what I call range to see where someone could do it part time and start that side hustle, or somebody just gets to the end of the rope and says, enough, I'm cutting the
Yep.
cord and I'm stepping into the world of entrepreneurship.
That's awesome. Well, and I think you mentioned mindset and mechanics. So if we kind of look at the mindset, I'm guessing there's a lot of people that are sitting listening right now going, I could never do that. Okay. And I'm thinking just that mindset right there really limits them from ever potentially enjoying that. So was mindset something important to you early on, or when did you learn that piece in your journey?
Well, that's the elephant in the room, Dave, because that's exactly what people are up against because of all of the negative beliefs, the negative values, the negative rules they have
Yeah,
circulating around in their head that are really being talked through the voice recording of what we call the saboteur. And the saboteur is that little voice in your head or that little devil on your shoulder that says, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not educated enough. What if
right.
you do it and you fail? What if you do it and you lose money? What if you do it and you have to put your tail between your legs and go back to your W-2 job? And for
Sure.
most people, that's too painful to face. And so they
Yeah.
settle and they, settle. They sit in their cubicle or they go to their office 5 days a week and, trade time for dollars. So the very first thing you've got to do is you got to do what I call a personal inventory with your beliefs, with your values, and with your rules. And that is get crystal clear on what are you talking about in your head and what's real and what's, that doubt, that fear, that worry, that anxiety, that if we really approach it from the fact that we are all creative human beings, some of us are good at, stuff with numbers. Some of us are good with
Yeah.
creativity. Some of us, are really, ambidextrous, where you start to see through a different lens. You start to hear through a different set of headphones, and you start to see yourself as potentially becoming something called your future self. And where it's
Wow.
not easy to, see into the future and see your future self, it's available for anybody that's not just interested, but committed to moving in that direction.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. And I think that I don't know what your experience is on this, Trevor, but to me, talking to groups or talking to individuals, it's much easier for them to find their weaknesses rather than their strengths. And
Yes.
so, like, if you say, I'm good at X, it's like sometimes people think you're egotistical, you're full of yourself. It seems like it's almost like frowned upon to say, I'm good at that. So then we live in this, I'm bad at X, Y, or Z. That's got to
Yes.
be one of the first things that mindset help, our mindset shift has to happen is I have to be okay saying I'm really good at and then fill in the blank. Do you find that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that particular exercise?
1,000%, Dave, because what you're opening up, and I just love that you've tabled that, is that the strongest force inside all of us is the need to be consistent with our identity. It's really our identity. It's who we believe we are. It's
Yeah.
really what we believe we are. It's really how we believe that we came to be. But I want to just again really let the listener know that a lot of the beliefs about who we are came from our parents or our
Mm,
grandparents or our school teachers who said, be quiet, get in
yeah.
line, pay
Yep.
attention, stop daydreaming. And so ultimately, if that becomes a smaller, more, contracted version of ourself, when would now be a good time to remember that, we are a resilient bunch. And if we get into possibility, optimism, courage, gamification, these are also attributes that we have access to where maybe we got to kind of eject whatever our parents or our school teachers or grandparents taught us and
Yeah.
install some new software about what's real in today's world. And that, gets started by really getting what I call curious.
Yeah.
Who are we? What are we about? Why do we want to live a certain life? And then who do we need to be to go, move forward towards it? Does that land with you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm just curious, is that where you kind of, as a high performance business coach, it feels like that's the starting place
Yes.
because you're building on that foundation of mindset? I can't imagine the athletes that you work with would really have had the success that they've had with a negative mindset. I can't do that. I'll never be able to score a goal. I'll never this, I'll never that. So, I mean, that just seems it seems like normal, or it seems like a common sense thing, but yet I see so many people that don't really have that good solid mindset, and that's limiting them. I got to believe once they see that, Trevor, it just blows their mind in more ways than one to see what's really out there for them once they get that, once they wrap their brain around that. Is that accurate?
You're correct, Dave. It's once they start to wrap their brain around it. You don't just arrive in one coaching session.
Yeah.
It's like you got to go back, and it's almost like going to the gym. When you lift weights at the gym, you don't go one time and say, "Thank God that's over." You got to go
Yeah.
back and you got to keep lifting. And what's happening is you're literally tearing down the muscle, but when it heals, it's getting stronger and thicker and more together. And that's really what coaching is. And you're opening it up for a beautiful framework that we call the four S's, because there's four words that all start with the letter S that if you or I or the listener really understand, it can help make that journey and that succession plan a lot easier. And the very
Sure.
first word of the four, Dave, is the word state. And that
Okay.
refers to your state management, which is really all about focus. And most people are focused on why they can't do something versus why they could do something. So
Sure.
ultimately, their focus is I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not brave enough. I'm not, right? And if that's their focus, that's going to be their result. My job is to get them to focus on, okay, well, who are you? What do you want? Why do you want it? And if you really are defiantly committed to moving towards it, we can help you to do that. But it takes a lot of work to get to that place where they're not focused on what they don't want, but they start focusing on what they do want. That's the first
Sure.
S.
Wow. So what's the second S?
Second S is their story. And their
Okay.
story is really the narrative that they tell themselves every day, right? And if your story is this is going to be hard, or it's going to take a
Mhm.
lot of time, or it's going to take a lot of money, or I
Sure.
would need to hire a VA and I
Yeah.
don't have the money to hire a VA, whatever
Sure.
that nonsense is that we tell ourselves becomes our reality. My job as a high performance coach is to rewrite the story to win. It's not about what you can't do, it's about what you can do. And again, you need a big why, because when
Yeah.
the why is big enough, the how starts to show up. The universe works with you to bring you the money, to bring you the part time employee, to bring you the clients. And again, with your background and all that you do, I mean, when you really retrace your journey, think about how your state and your story affected where you are today. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we do a ton of work with EQ, and I think that
Yes.
self-awareness right at this spot, if you're not aware, the lower your emotional intelligence is, the less likely you're going to be able to get past your story. Because if your story is all about defeat and what can't happen, then it's got to be really hard to move into any other spot. Do you feel like a lot of people get stuck right here and they just kind of fizzle out?
Well, 1,000%, because the human brain has roughly 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Now get your head around that, 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
That's
And
crazy.
because most of those thoughts are negative or are survival based, we
Yeah,
tend to think and focus on the past instead of getting out of those thoughts from the past and getting into the present to create what I call the predictable future. Not just the
yeah,
future, but we
sure.
can't create the future by living in the past. That would be like driving a car forward, staring into the rear view mirror. Well, that's not going to work very well. You're going to crash. We got to
Right.
rip that rear view mirror off and look out the big, bright, beautiful windshield about what's in front of the vehicle, not what's behind it.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. What would be the third S then, Trevor?
The third one is a really cool word, and that is your standards, right? Your standards, because I can tell the quality of somebody stepping into entrepreneurship or business by the standard that they hold for themselves. Are they getting up early? Are they getting inspired? Are they reading great books, listening to great podcasts like this one? Are they going to conferences? Are they learning from Tony Robbins? Or are they working with
Sure.
a business coach? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the quality of your business in your life will be in direct proportion to the standard that you hold for yourself. And as you continue to raise the bar, you continue to get better. And who can get better? Well, anyone, again, that's defiantly committed to raising their standards.
Sure. Well, and I think it needs to be pointed out the standards are for you, not for other people, right? Because
Correct.
super easy to have high standards of all the people around you and allow your standards to be lower. We're trying to invert that, make your standards the highest and let other people just worry about themselves. So I love that. I love that one. What's the fourth one? And then we're going to take a quick break. What's the last S then in that equation?
Well, the final S is the fourth one, but again, I want to preface that we never ever go to the fourth S without first checking in with our state, our story,
Okay.
and our standards, because
Sure.
it's what we call strategy. It's
Okay.
strategy. It's really what's going to take you from where you are to where you want to be, right? And maybe you have a roadmap or a recipe or a blueprint or a GPS, or you create one, but you never, ever, ever want to create, the site of a goal without really back and in reverse engineering it and having a pathway to prosperity through partnerships or whatever it is that you're going to need to help you to get there. But
Yeah.
again, if we do the work with our state story and standards first, the strategy becomes much easier.
Well, you had everybody until you said you got to do the first three because so many people want to just, hey, let's just go to the batting cages,
That's
Trevor.
it.
Let's just hit the ball. Let's just shoot at the goalie. Let's just take a ton of shots. Let's not worry about plays and strategy. And let's not worry about the state of our mind and all that. Let's just, I think I'm guessing you get a lot of people that want to start at strategy rather than end there. Is that safe?
Dave, you just hit the back of the net with that. It's everybody comes to me saying, I don't want the woo-woo stuff. Don't want to talk about the mindset. Just tell me, how do I make money? How do I
Yep.
grow my business? How do I,
Yep.
bring on team members? How do I, reduce my workload from 50 hours a week to 22 hours a week? And I
Yep.
laugh because if it were that simple, everyone would do it, but
Yep.
everyone doesn't do it because they don't start with their state, their story, and their standards.
Wow, that's fantastic. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to unpack the freedom code that you have created, and I think it's going to be great for the listener. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. Honored to be hanging out with Trevor McGregor, high performance business coach. And we are talking about this question of, what are the biggest barriers to success? Are they internal or are they external? And I think by now, if you haven't got the answer to that, that it's much more of an internal barrier than an external, that is the answer to the question, at least how I believe and how Trevor believes. So, you created this freedom code. So why don't you kind of unpack that for the listener today, Trevor? That'd be awesome.
Well, thank you, Dave. And again, after doing this work for decades and decades, again, working with and for Tony Robbins, having my own journey, coaching, over 45,000 business owners, again, I've really summarized that the man or the woman that steps into entrepreneurship is really optimizing for five things. And I call it the five-step freedom code. Because at the end of the day, and we'll go through all of these again, the
Sure,
number one thing that people do come to a coach or a mentor to try to improve is their financial freedom, right? Let's get this money thing handled. And I do believe that business is a vehicle for growth. And that if you are making money, that means that you have to be adding value to someone or something because money is the byproduct of value. So as people come and they want financial freedom, that means they're going to have to go and figure out how to add value so that they can start moving towards their where they want to be in life. Does that land with you?
yeah. So are these in order of importance, or is financial freedom like generally the most important to people, or can they, be in different orders for different people?
It is a great question. And I think that a lot of people come to coaching with that as their number one goal when it's not the most important in my mind. As we get through the other four, I'll share
Sure,
with you what I feel is the most important. But let's be honest, money makes the world go round. And if you believe that you are worthy of creating more abundance in your life, and you want the finer things in life, you have to really understand the value equation. That if you want to
sure.
make more and move towards a certain net worth or a certain amount of income per month, you've got to add more value. That's number one.
Sure. Awesome. And so are they all Fs? Or are we going to go through Fs, or you got different letters now?
There's different letters for these
All right,
ones, but the five
cool.
freedoms are universal. Doesn't matter if you're new to business, you're an intermediate, you've been in business a long time, you're in Canada, the US, wherever, they will land with everyone again. And that takes us to number two, Dave, which
Yeah,
is time freedom. Time freedom. Because once you have financial freedom, now you can buy back some of your time. You can hire more people. You can leverage AI. You can do many different things these days so that you're not in the hustle and the grind all the time, that you're not putting in 70-hour work weeks, that you're not wearing 72 different hats, going from sales to marketing to HR to procurement to, buying insurance and all of these things. Because at the end of the day, we want you to work in what we call your ZOG. And your ZOG or ZOG is your zone of genius. It's
mm,
really what hat should you be wearing? What do
sure.
you love to get up and do? Why do you love to get up and do it? And can you surround yourself with other like minded people where you leverage them and AI in their zone of genius? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does. I'm just curious for somebody listening that likes that utility infielder thought. They love wearing all those hats. Does that, this just feels like this would kind of fly in the face of that. Is the goal to be in your zone of genius as often as possible? Or are there certain people that you've run into, Trevor, that are good at all different things and they are okay in that scenario?
Yeah, again, different strokes for different folks. You find some people that are real people persons and they make great salesmen and
Yep.
saleswomen. And then you
Yep.
get people that really want to sit behind a computer and crunch numbers all day. So to each their own. And you do find some people that are a bit ambidextrous. But at the end of the day, it's almost like I would do with my clients a values hierarchy of roles and responsibilities. Where if you said, all right, my number one role and responsibility is sales, right? And that's something that you love to do.
Sure.
When would now
Yep.
be a good time to optimize for that? If
Yeah.
you're creative, if you are good with people, if you're good with, systems, there's a ton of different things. But if we did that hierarchy, what's number one, what's number two, what's number three, what's number four, what's number five? And really, what do you love doing? Because there's things as a high performance coach and a real estate investor, and we have a publishing company, my wife and I, we do many different things
Mm,
where I could probably wear 17 different hats a day, but I
sure,
really only wear four or five and I
sure.
delegate the rest to other people. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
Yeah, no, it does totally. I'm thinking there's somebody listening right now, Trevor, that is kind of putting their worth into equating to working a ton. And this
Yep.
is kind of like nails on the chalkboard because they don't want to necessarily work less or they've never thought of that. So is this like a big blind spot for people that because there's a lot of people that think, hey, working all night is, I should get a badge of honor. No
Right.
one works as hard as me in this company, things like that. How do you kind of break those myths for people and help them see through that?
Well, again, I've got a very cool proprietary time management system where we get
Okay.
crystal clear on, what are lower level tasks, what are mid-tier tasks, and then what are the tasks that you'd love to do more of. So it's almost like we call it brown time, green time, and gold time. And
Oh,
gold time
okay.
for me is the stuff that, it would be like taking your spouse out on date night, playing with your kids, going to the
Sure.
gym, reading Think and Grow Rich. It's the things that give you an infinite ROI on your time. The
Gotcha.
green stuff is work stuff. That's where, we might be doing research, we might be onboarding a new team member, we might be doing a sale, we might be, I don't know, preparing our taxes for the IRS or whatever. But think of green time as the work stuff. And then the brown time is the stuff that I don't do much of it, but it would be like watching TV or scrolling through Facebook or maybe mowing the lawn, where some people like mowing their lawn, but I've reached that
Yeah,
stage of life where I'd rather pay someone 25 bucks an hour to mow my lawn in that brown
sure.
time so I can either work on more green time or gold time. So,
Yeah,
Dave, I think to answer your question, that badge of honor for a lot of people starting out that don't have the resources or don't have the partners or they don't have the knowledge with AI yet, it's a transition where you start to
sure,
get clear on what you want to do and what you don't want to do. But there is no right or wrong way to do it. Some weeks for me, I'm still working 60, 70 hours, but I love what I do. And other weeks, I'm working 25 to 30 hours. So it's
yeah,
almost like, we give and take. It's called hustle and flow. Some weeks are more
sure.
hustle and some weeks are more flow. And then, depending on what's going on in the business, what's going on at the time of season we're in, where we're traveling, that all comes into play for me.
Well, I tell you what, I would much rather cut the grass than do my taxes. So, for anyone listening out there, you could do my taxes, I'll come cut your grass because
I love it.
I'd much rather do that. So, brown and green and gold are different for everybody listening. There's no right or wrongs. There's no, hey,
Right.
these always are this color. So, I love that piece. So, what would the third freedom be? We have financial freedom and time freedom. What's the third one, Trevor?
Yeah, the third one is near and dear to my heart. I mean, I've been on this planet for 50 years, and number three is what we call location and lifestyle freedom.
Okay.
Location and lifestyle. It's like if you could write the story to win, what would your typical week look like? What time would you get up? Where would you be? How would you go about that week? And would you be in one place or would you move around? I mean, at the time we're recording this podcast, I'm down under. I'm in Australia
Yeah.
today. I was in Salt Lake City last week. Next week, or in 2 weeks from now, we're going to Japan. And then after that, we're going to do a couples retreat in Italy this summer. So I don't
Wow.
say that to beat on my chest. I'm
Sure.
saying that when I worked my corporate job and my real estate job and now my coaching job and now my consulting job, we've got to that place where we travel a good 6 months of the year and we don't apologize for it. Right.
Yeah.
So we live what we call, Dave, the endless summer, where we're in really nice locations in the cold North American winters. And
Sure.
when it's beautiful in North America, that's where we find ourselves. But that's number three. We call it location and lifestyle freedom.
That has to totally be nails on the chalkboard to an untrained entrepreneur that's thinking if I'm not sitting at my desk for 70 hours a week, there's
Yep.
something wrong here. I mean, that's got to be hard for people to master that one. Do you have to master one to get to the other, or are these kind of all freedoms that ebb and flow throughout your life at different stages?
Well, again, I think it's the latter where some people find this in their 30s, some people find this in their 70s. I'm in my 50s, So again, different strokes for
Yeah.
different folks. And the nails on the chalkboard thing as well, people go, well, that must be fine for you. I've got kids and they've got to go to this school, and I'm an ex single parent and I've got to be in this
Yep.
brick and mortar business. And trust me, I get that because I used to
Yep.
live that life. But I also said and was willing to commit to a better state, a better story, and a higher standard to live a life of freedom rather than be tied to a certain location. And it didn't
Yeah.
happen easy and it didn't happen overnight. So if I'm planting a seed in someone and it might take 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 years, I'm telling you, Dave, anyone who's defiantly committed to those first three freedoms can have them.
Well, and I love that you added lifestyle to location because there are probably people listening that traveling isn't that important and they're comfortable and content in that spot where they are. So then if you are, then I think you start looking at your lifestyle and trying to find ways to find freedom in that. So I love those two together. So what would the fourth one be then in this situation, Trevor?
Yeah, as we get to number four of the five, the fourth one is most near and dear to my heart, Dave, where that is impact freedom. Impact freedom. That is, what do you want to trade your life for? What do you want to get up and do every day where you're adding so much value to people or the planet or humanity? And for me, I love coaching. Like I said, we do a lot of consulting, we do a lot of retreats around the world. We do some amazing things with our publishing company for children's books. We do a lot, but we don't just do it to make money. We do it to make the world a better place and to help more people achieve the financial freedom, the time freedom, and the location freedom that's available. So I would ask you or the listener, what are you going to do with the dash between the year you were born and the year you're no longer here? Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, we're most fulfilled and we're most happy when we're impacting and helping other people.
Well, and I think so many people seem to be having their heads down, just getting their daily list done, and they're just focused on themselves, and they never really look up that much to be able to realize what impact am I having on other people. That feels like almost the opposite of being an entrepreneur because I'm trying to gather and gain and build and accumulate, right? And it seems counterproductive to look outside. So is that another blind spot that you have to focus on with people that come to you, is trying to change that view from all about me to all about others? Is that a tough one for some?
I think it's tougher for some, but ultimately this whole journey of coaching and going within, right, is really about who are you, what do you want, and why do you want it? I mean, when we get really into it and we start talking about, well, what's the meaning of life?
Yeah,
The meaning of life is to be of service and to help others. So some people will do one job or one entrepreneurial thing where some people see, well, this is going to be my moneymaker thing, but I'm going to go do something over here that maybe doesn't make a lot of money necessarily, but it's full of impact, right? So
yeah,
it's almost like now there's one fishing pole in the water and they put a second fishing pole in the water. And then as you get older, you start to really understand, Dave, that high performers have multiple streams of income. And so
sure.
when you really think about that, and it's hard for people in their 20s to even handle what's in front of them. But as you start to get older, you start to get wiser, you start to see patterns. And I've become a pattern recognition specialist. I'm somebody that wants multiple streams of income and wants to impact more people. And so it's a win win either way. I'm getting the impact through different businesses and I'm getting the income that helps with the time freedom and the location freedom. But at the end of the day, you know what? What's going to really be, the most important to us is, did we live? Did we learn? Did we laugh? And did we make a difference in other people's lives?
So I'm assuming the marriage retreat you're giving it, you're not sitting underneath it then, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do some pretty cool things: men's retreats, women's retreats, couples retreats. We do things with world schooling and kids all over this beautiful blue planet. I mean, my wife, Lisa, and I, we've got it pretty dialed in. And it doesn't make us better. It just means that
Yeah.
we are not just going to sit around and wait for life to happen. We're going to go
Yeah.
out there and create it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. What's the fifth freedom for you as we start to land the plane today?
Yeah, as we get ready to land this plane, Dave, number five is what we call relationship freedom. Relationship freedom. And that's an invitation to you, to me, to the listener to really think about the people that you're hanging around with. I mean, are you hanging around with other coworkers who are always negative? Are you hanging around with energy vampires? Are you hanging around with some family members that every time that you want to, raise your standard and raise the bar, they're telling you that's stupid, that'll never work, you're crazy, you're going to lose money. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I'd take the path of least resistance, where we know that when you get around, the right people and people that do personal growth or listen to this beautiful podcast or read great books or go to events, that a high tide lifts all boats. So it's
Yep.
really an invitation to ask, what rooms should I be starting to want to get into? What type of people should I be associating with? What type of retreat or coaching could I involve in my life where I could rise along with others? But as we really take a look at all five, the financial freedom, the time freedom, the location and lifestyle freedom, the impact freedom, and getting into bigger and better rooms, I'm telling you, after 50 years on this planet and after doing 45,000 coaching sessions, there's not one person in America that wouldn't want more of those five things. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm guessing there's a little bit of brake lights going on with relationship thing because now I have to think about that and impact kind of take the view off of me and onto other people. So there are a lot of entrepreneurs that's new for, let's
Mhm.
face it, they've been their whole life. They started when they were young and they just have been grinding and grinding and grinding. I always laugh when people do this 50 weeks a year and then 2 week vacation and the 2 weeks they're at Disney World and they're just, complaining about the long lines and how hot it is and blah blah blah. I
Yes.
stepped in gum and it's like, your whole year you just are building up to these 2 weeks. So I love these freedoms that they're able to give us more enjoyment along the journey rather than hoping just for that end destination. So that I love these. We could sit here all day and talk about this. I got to let you go. I got two more questions for you. What would your tip of the day be today, Trevor, for somebody listening? Maybe it's something that we covered, maybe it's something that we haven't yet covered, but what's on your heart today?
Well, thank you. And again, I think that you and I could talk for hours. I think we're cut from a very similar cloth and we want the very best for the listener out there. And so I often, think about what can I add at the end of a podcast? Because I do a lot of podcasts, I do a lot of, speaking from stage, all those things. And the
Yep.
very first, thing that, is the loop that I'd open is what is your why? I mean, why do you want to be in business as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur? Why do you want to make money? What would you do with that money? How would you
Yeah.
really help yourself and help your family? And your why has to be bigger than just you. It's going to have to be something that, it supports your spouse, your kids, your community, humanity, something. Because when the why is big enough, you have a reason to get up in the morning. You have a purpose. You have a something that stirs the soul. And so I really want people to check in with what is your why? And maybe it's time to journal, or maybe it's time to work with a coach, or maybe it's time to reignite something. The
Sure.
second part of that is hunger, right? How hungry are you for success? I mean, are
Yeah.
you going to settle for the appetizer or do you want the full buffet? Because both are available and the universe doesn't play favorites. So, again, once you really get crystal clear on what your why is and you get hungry for success and you start moving through those four S's towards the five freedoms, that's when the sparks fly and the magic starts to happen.
Wow, that's well said. Thank you for sharing that. You have a mini audio series called Rich Beyond Belief. So, kind of share with the listener what that is and how they can get a copy today.
Well, thank you again. And to reward you and the listeners for staying with us this long, I'm pleased to present my Rich Beyond Belief mini audio series, which is really 8 mini recordings, Dave, of the best of the best of the best coaching tools and frameworks and methodologies about goal setting, about time management, about
Hmm.
identity, about really what is your why. And all of these things are packed into a mini downloads that you can either get on your phone or your desktop completely free of charge. And all you've got to do to get that is to go to www.trevormcgregor.com/mindset. I'll say it again, trevormcgregor.com/mindset. If you do that, you can pick that up and start listening to it today.
Awesome. And we'll put a copy in the show notes. Is that the best place? The last question for you. If somebody's listening right now, this was like drinking out of a fire hose for some because there's just a ton there. If somebody wanted to connect with you, if they wanted to have a discussion with you, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, thank you, Dave. Again, yes, for people that want to learn more about how a coaching structure could support them, we've got plenty of spots available. Myself and my coaching team, I've got 5 phenomenal coaches that work with me across the US for anybody that is defiantly committed to going to the next level. And all you need to do to set up one of those discovery calls with myself or my team is again go to trevormcgregor.com. And if you scroll down, you'll see apply for a discovery breakthrough session. Those are complimentary, those are free of charge. We'll get on Zoom for roughly 30 to 45 minutes, learn a little bit more about, where the client's at, where they want to go. And if we feel that we're a good fit to help them get there, we'll share all of the details and the investment, how long the coaching program goes. And we've got different packages for different people to help make sure that we're able to support anybody that really wants to take it to the next level.
So here's the tough question. So 5 coaches in the US, were they busting your chops the day after the Olympics were over, or did they not call you just because they're letting you
Dave,
grieve?
this is the second time you've brought it up, and boy, I got roasted. I got absolutely roasted. I mean, the U.S. hockey team hasn't won since 1980. So if we
I
really go
know. This is
back, I mean,
why I
God,
got to
I was
bring this up. It's going to be probably a while again. So,
well, I don't know. They've gotten a lot better, but yeah, I had quite a few texts, DMs, and messages celebrating the U.S. for the magnificent win that they had.
wow, that's hilarious. Well, I tell you what, we are appreciative of your time. We're appreciative of everything that you're doing as a high performance business coach. And again, if you want, go to trevormcgregor.com to learn more about how to connect with him and what's going on in his world. And as I say every week, rather than just jump into your next podcast, there was a lot of really good stuff here, whether it's the state, the story, the standard, the strategy, or it's the other pieces we talked about, the 5 freedoms. There's a lot here. So rather than just jump into your next session or your next whatever, just take some time and think about this. And maybe it does make sense to try to find that, the free Rich Beyond Belief mini audio series or set up a call with Trevor. Either way, Trevor, thank you so much for investing time with us today. These are great things. And hopefully now our mindset and our mechanics are going to be better because we invested this time with you. So thank you so much for this. And can't wait to keep learning from you.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, Dave, and keep up the amazing work that you're doing.